I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Hello and welcome to Grow Your Business podcast. I'm Shivani Gupta and I'm your host. I want to talk to you about the fact that this is the first time in history that we're going to have 5 generations working in the workforce at the same time. So my father's era, there was 2, mine, there were 3, now they're going to be 5, and people that have often retired are now coming back into the workforce. Now, let's not dive into all the details. I've done a previous podcast on what we call them. We call them veterans and baby boomers and Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. But essentially, irrespective of what you call them, these are the 5 generations that we're speaking about. So I wanted to do a podcast and I wanted to do a recording in terms of perhaps some tips for business owners and leaders in businesses and how you can actually make the most of the fact that you're going to have 5 different viewpoints, you're going to have 5 different generations, and how to make sure that you, as the leader and the owner of that business or the owner of the business, can really maximize the people that you have in your business. So the first thing is, as simple as that sounds, you've got to value everybody's ideas. So when you're in meetings, you've got to make sure that people are very comfortable sharing their thoughts. Now, they're going to express their ideas very differently. They're going to express them according to the language that they use, according to the age, according to the era, according to whether they extend certain words or abbreviate certain words. So one of the things we want to do when we're managing a team that is so diverse is we want to make sure that everybody's ideas are included and we want to value all of them. What that means is we might start to use a lot more, let's go around the circle, let's go around the table, and everybody share 1 or 2 ideas on this particular thing, because you want to make sure that we're utilizing that diversity and not missing out on certain people's ideas. And as a result of that, we'll get different perspectives, and then we can take that into our decision-making process. The second thing I want to talk about is it's so important to have flexible schedules. Now, we've got to let people work when they are most productive. Now, this happens with one generation. Some people prefer, starting early and finishing early. Some people prefer in the later of the day. We've got to allow for enough schedules. And some of those people may be part-time, permanent part-time. They might even be casual. We want to make sure that we find those common times and find the flexibility in the schedules to make sure we've got all, if not most of the people around that room, around that particular way. One of the key things that I say to all of my clients is it's such a great way for us to be able to learn. There is so much learning that some of the older, wiser generations can pass on to our younger people. I know a number of CEOs that have now hired mentors that are Gen Z. What do I mean by that? They're actually hiring them to learn language, to learn AI, to learn things that perhaps their people in their age and their wisdom that they've got, and at that particular level in terms of a CEO, they have so much to learn from the younger generation. So it's so important to talk about that aspect as a business leader and a business owner, and we want to be able to talk to them about that. What that also means is you want to get training happening in different formats. For example, some people will consume the same training as an online course. Others might want that face-to-face workshops or even the peer-to-peer learning sessions or one-on-one or a small group. So one of the things we want to do is, cater for the fact that some people might want to read, some people like to watch, or doing some hands-on activities, and have the same learning that you want to do, but have that delivered in a couple of different ways so that can be done. For example, I know that some of my clients at the moment, they want to do webinars and things online on a fairly frequent basis, but then they also want to have the face-to-face interaction. So the same thing, but you want to allow that for all of the different generations. The other thing you want to do is what I call team up. You want to mix the different groups, different age groups, different generations working on the same problem. So rather than always giving tech-savvy stuff to the younger generation, you know what? It's a really great idea to mix that up. So get people working together on a project, get them asking the questions sometimes if they don't understand, because in those questions lies the way that we communicate to our customers. There lies some of the simplification that we can do to be able to get people to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve. So make sure that you team up, make sure you get these groups working together and working in diverse teams together. At the same time, when you achieve success, you also want celebrating the teams together. So you want to recognize them. I always think you want to recognize them publicly. It doesn't have to be in front of the whole business. Even if it's, 10 people in a room or the previous workshop that they're in, let them know how well that's going. Say thank you out verbally, send people thank you emails, just the little things on people. And that is whether there's 1, 3, or 5 generations in the workplace. People love being recognized and thanked for some of the work that they do. The next tip I want to talk about is the importance of keeping communication really clear. Make sure everybody understands what it is, whether it's a quick face-to-face conversation, whether it's a quick online conversation. One of the things we want to be able to do is just to make sure that that is all done and be open to change. For example, if one of the generations tries that and says, I don't understand that, you've also got to understand that if there are 5 generations in our workforce and in our business, when we're communicating, there's also 5 generations that we're communicating to. So be open to change and saying, okay, one of our people in our team doesn't understand this. How will that apply to the same generation outside? How can we actually streamline that? How can we simplify that or get clearer in our communication what we need to do? The other thing, again, this sounds really, might sound like a bit of a given, but it often isn't in the 5 generations in the workforce, is how do we actually show respect for each other? One of the things is actually asking people that, not making assumptions in terms of how people want to be treated. So don't assume that all older, employees aren't good with technology, or all the younger, employees lack experience. So just respecting each other and saying, how do you like to be shown respect? And making sure there's a copy of that, making sure that people understand all the different people in the team that they're working with and how they can make that happen. Making sure we always encourage feedback with people. And what that looks like is that we want to be able to hear different people's opinions. We want to be able to ask them how the team members are going and to be able to do that. And as a business leader and owner, it is so important to lead with kindness. What that means is making sure if somebody's struggling, be kind, having the patience. And if you don't have the space and time, having somebody else who's kind and having the patience to be able to make sure people understand so that there's no frustration. And we want to create a culture that when we talk about diversity and inclusion, this is an opportunity for us as business leaders to be the most diverse, to be the most inclusive by having such a variety of people in our workplaces. I hope you got a tip or two out of that to apply into your business. This is going to be happening more and more as people are living longer. People will be coming out of retirement and joining certain businesses. And it's such a great source of wisdom and knowledge if you are very short of people. I hope you got some ideas out of that. Any questions that you have, please remember my website is called askshivani.com, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you off this podcast. Have a great day. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.